Hello, everyone, and happy Monday. If you're a football fan, it's National Championship Day, but that's not what Believe in Purdue's covering because Purdue didn't make it. But I am your host, Sam Sprunger, as always, joined by, whoops, wrong way, Grant Flora. Grant, how are we today?
Doing pretty good. Yeah. Ready to start a new week. Monday is always a little bit wishy-washy, but you know what? It's all right. Coming off
Well,
a good weekend of hoops.
that's what I was going to say. When you come off of a West Coast trip that you win both games, it makes Monday about that much better. But
Yeah.
real quick, programming update. So we're gonna talk about the Oregon game on Saturday, and then preview the Ohio State game for Tuesday. Then Wednesday, we'll react to the Ohio State game, and preview the Michigan game. Now, I know they don't play Michigan until Friday, but Friday morning we are going to have from Fox Sports Big Ten Network and the Sporting News, Mike DeCourcy, one of our favorite bracketologists. He's really good at what he does, and he's going to come on and talk about the Boilers and kind of where he sees them heading in March. So really excited to be able to have Mike come on. He knows his stuff, and I've talked to him a few times on other shows, and he always brings a good program.
Yeah, really excited to get to talk to him. Just lots of good things about his bracketology, and
Yep.
he's just like you said, he does a lot of really good stuff for Fox and for Big Ten Network, and so to have that opportunity, definitely grateful for that. But hopefully he'll have some nice insight for us on the Boilermakers.
Hopefully he's kind to us.
yeah, for sure.
Well, let's jump into it right away. Purdue goes to Eugene and to take on the 13th ranked Oregon Ducks. And the Boilermakers, Grant, they come out with a 65-58 win over the Ducks. And my goodness gracious, that first half was horrible to watch in the fact of, it was 31-30. But oh my goodness, it just, I don't know. This was a tough one to watch when you expect a certain level, but at the same time, the defense played really, really well.
Yeah, it was. I was torn on my feelings about that because, from one standpoint, like you said, not a very fun, aesthetically
No.
pleasing first half to watch, but at the same time, Purdue played pretty well. I mean, they were only down by one going into halftime. They didn't play well offensively, but they still managed to scrape 30 points, and they only trailed by one at the half. They kind of just grinded it out, and they kind of kept going that way in the second half, and it was really encouraging to see them be able to compete on the road against a good team when they're not playing their best and come away with a victory.
And I want to say they only hit 1-3 in the first half. They didn't hit very many. I don't have the overall stats here. I'm trying to find the box score. There it is. Overall, Purdue 2 of 12 from threes, and Oregon not a ton better, but they were 7 of 29. If you would tell me that Purdue would shoot, what was it, 30%, and 2 of 12 from threes, and tell me that they would win by 7 points, I don't know that I would have an easy time believing you. I really don't.
Yeah, especially when their offense, particularly their three-point shooting, is such a big piece of what they do. I mean, this team throughout the season has been more of an offensive first kind of team. Their defense has maybe struggled and lagged behind a little bit.
Yep.
But especially these last few games in this winning streak, their defense has really taken the charge. They forced 16 turnovers. That's another game we talked about the turnovers last episode where they were forcing them, something they aren't used to doing. They did it again against Oregon, and I'm wondering if Matt Painter really emphasized that kind of as they restarted the Big Ten season, when this turn of the year, I should say, because they had a turnover issue themselves. And if you can't necessarily fix it, you can try and make it better, but you can't necessarily fix it. One way to offset it is to force turnovers for the other team.
I wrote down one of the graphics that they showed on the game. First 12 games for Purdue, 8-4 record. Their opponent's points per game was 71.8. Their opponent's 3-point percentage was 37.4. The turnovers per game for Purdue, 16.8, with a turnover margin of -4.5. In the 6 games prior to the Oregon game, Purdue 6-0, opponents' points per game 60.7, the 3-point percentage 27.3, turnovers per game 8.5, and the turnover margin plus 5.7. To say that they're playing better defense is a very big understatement when you compare those numbers. Now, you have to take into consideration that you have Auburn, Texas A&M, you have Penn State. Those games right there where they didn't really perform very well, and those are good teams. So they lose some games to where. And Penn State, I guess you can take them or leave them. But even if you just look at Texas A&M and Auburn, those are tough games. So you're going to give up more points and things like that. Even if you play a great game, and Purdue didn't. They played okay against Texas and A&M, but Auburn just housed them, just blew their doors off. So, but and don't forget Marquette. Marquette beat them as well. And beat them soundly. So, and those are good teams. The 6-game win streak that they had before Oregon, those teams weren't there. But still, to say that they've turned a corner and are playing better defense, I think that's the key to what we saw on Saturday.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Up until this game, Purdue was on a 6-game win streak, but really they were a little bit untested.
Right.
This was the game that was going to show us whether this Purdue team, this new version of the Purdue team that we've seen since the Big Ten restart, whether that team was legit or not. And clearly they proved they were. They didn't even play that good of a game, and yet they still found a way to win. Before, you could say they played, better basketball maybe against Texas A&M and Auburn as far as offensive, at least against Texas A&M. I think they played better offensively, still couldn't come away with a win. This time they go on the road to Oregon. They find a way to get it done. I think that speaks a lot to where this team is at now compared to where they were in 2024.
Well, if you think about, even with Zach Edey there, if you saw a Purdue team that struggled to shoot, they lost. That was just the way they've been the past. You include Jaden Ivey's season, and then the last two with Zach Edey, and even for the most part this year up to until this win streak, if they were having an off night shooting, they were losing. And they were falling behind huge, and they were losing. Look at the national championship game. They didn't shoot well. Other than Zach Edey, not one Boilermaker shot very well in that national championship game, and they lost by 15 points. And that's credit given to UConn on the defense. But what I'm saying is if they struggled in the past few years, near history, if they struggled shooting, they lost games. To Saturday, they struggled badly to shoot the ball, and they still won the ball game.
Yeah, and you look at another stat here, rebounding, particularly offensive rebounding against Oregon.
Yes.
12 offensive rebounds for Purdue, just 5 for Oregon. Rebounding's been a bit of a struggle all year long. Again, we talked about less size in the post than what we're used to seeing Purdue have. But they brought the rebounding and this win streak, they brought it against Oregon, and that was really a big deal because if you're not going to shoot well, you got to get on the offensive glass and try and get those second chance opportunities.
Yeah, and you look, they only had 10 assists the whole game on 19 made baskets. They only made 19 baskets, Grant, but they were 25 of 30 from the line.
Yeah, the free throw line was huge, especially because sometimes on the road, especially, Purdue can struggle from the line. So not only did they make 83% of them, but they got to the line 30 times. And that shows a lot of aggressiveness from this team all the way around. I think is really important for them because, like you have said, these last few episodes, driving to the rim, being aggressive offensively has been huge. And they did a lot of that. TKR, I thought he had some struggles at times, still found a way to get 23 points. Why? 9 of 9 at the free throw line. How big is that for the big guy who gets fouled a lot but doesn't make free throws very well?
I was going to say he shoots in the high 50s is what his average is, but I was looking at he missed his first, I think, 5 shots, and he went 7 of 20 overall. So after the first 5, he was right around 50%. You said it. He hit 9 of 9, and he looked good doing it. He didn't have many that didn't, just hit the back of the rim and go straight down or swish through and nothing but net. He really did look good shooting it, and he had 23 and 11. Braden Smith, he struggled a little bit in the fact of his he had 7 assists, but he had 5 turnovers. So his assist to turnover ratio wasn't the greatest. Then you have Cam Heide, who scored 9, and then nobody else for Purdue scored over 6.
Yeah, and nobody was that efficient either. Smith, 5 of
Correct.
15 from the field. He got
Correct.
to his mid-range pull-up quite a bit, but I thought there were a lot of times where you're just a little bit off balance. Like they talk
Yep.
about your dominant foot leading when you shoot. So in his case, it would be his right foot. I think a lot of times he kind of found himself in a space where he was fading away from the basket a little bit with his left side kind of further ahead of his right, and that led to a lot of those missed shots that were being short too at the rim. And for him, that's a pretty big deal because usually if he can get to that open pull-up, he's knocking it down 8 or 9 times out of 10. So to not make those shots was pretty big, especially when your three-point shooters aren't hitting, and yet somehow they still find a way to win.
Well, and I think with Smith, I think he fell in love with that because he hit 2 of those first 3 where he was fading away from about 15 feet out, and I think he fell in love with that. Like, hey, if I can keep hitting these, well, he wasn't hitting them at regularity during this game, but overall, that second half, that 11-0 run out of the chute, really just kind of extinguished Oregon. They got back within 1, I think, at 42-41, I think it was, and then Purdue just kept doing what they did. Dana Altman made the statement, this team's playing really, really good defense. He said, if you hold a team to 30% shooting and 2 of 12 from threes, you should win the ball game, and we got beat.
Yeah, for sure. And I thought CJ Cox began guarding Jackson Shellstad at the beginning of the game, which I thought was a good move. It keeps Braden Smith from maybe getting in some foul trouble.
Yeah.
Should Shellstad try and exploit that? It
Agreed.
puts a little bit more of an athletic, bigger defender. CJ Cox is a good defender, especially for a freshman. He's had his lapses maybe at times, like freshmen usually do, but he's a talented defender. And so to put him on Shellstad, I think kind of got him out of rhythm, heated him up a little bit. Shellstad still had a solid game. 15 points for Shellstad. So not bad at all, but just didn't quite get in that rhythm. And then the rest of the team played a good team defensive set where they were trapping a little bit. I thought they did a nice job on Biddle, even though Biddle still ended up with 18. He knocked down some threes, but those threes were pretty well contested, maybe a little bit late on the closeouts at times. But overall, they weren't just giving him open threes. And he still, 18 points when everybody else is starting to struggle a little bit. Not bad at all. So I just thought overall, Purdue knew their assignments and they were able to get to their guys and really get them out of rhythm.
Well, I would definitely start getting excited at the fact that Purdue is playing the type of defense that they are, because it allows them to have that subpar day where they might be struggling a little bit offensively, and that still gives them hope. They beat the 13th best team, or the 13th ranked team in the country, and they played probably one of the worst offensively games I've seen them play in a really long time, with the exception of the ones they lost. Like, it's been a really long time since I've seen them play like this offensively and win.
Right, yeah. And it's just their offense will come. Like, it will.
Sure.
Obviously, you never know what's going to happen when you get to the postseason, but like, this is an anomaly of an offensive performance. Defense travels. That's what they always say. We saw it here against Oregon, and if they continue to play at this defensive level, it's going to give them a shot to win the Big Ten regular season without question.
Yeah. I think East Lansing probably has something to say about that, but it's let's just say it this way: the voters for the preseason standings, excuse me, are looking even better now, because Purdue's finally starting to turn that corner and look like not what they were last year, because they'll never have that again, but just they are a very talented squad that has some youngness on them. A lot of freshmen that are playing, meaningful minutes, but they're starting to come around, and their backcourt, I will argue with anybody, one of the best in the country when it comes to Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, and that is going to be their driving force for this season, just simply put.
Yeah, it's they are Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith, the maturity that you can see from freshman year when they were leading a team that was a 1 seed compared to where they are now is really remarkable. And they're two guys that just you wouldn't necessarily expect to be these dynamite guards just when you look at them without seeing them play. And they get out there, their intelligence, their maturity on the court has just really, really grown. And you see it now in games like this when neither of them are playing great offensively. But Braden Smith played good defense, had, I think, 4 steals again. Fletcher Lawyer just kind of did some little things, kept playing hard, and they find a way to win the basketball game.
Yeah, so they sit at 7-1, half a game behind Michigan State, who is 7-0 with their big win against Illinois on Sunday. Michigan a half game behind. Purdue will play them on Friday, but not before they play Ohio. They host Ohio State. So let's take a quick break. Just for the audio podcast on the other side of that, we will go ahead and talk about the game, the Boilermakers game on Tuesday, tomorrow, at Mackey Arena against the Ohio State Buckeyes. You're listening to Believe in Purdue on the Believe and Lounge Sports Network. Okay, we're back. Yeah, if you're watching, you saw me count. Yeah, I can count to 3. But Purdue doesn't get any easier. And Grant, you can disagree with me on this. I'm fine with that. But I have seen the dregs of Ohio State, the dregs of their Ohio State basketball team come in and absolutely house Purdue in the past. So I never try to look past Ohio State, but they come in on Tuesday, tomorrow, against the Boilermakers. What is it? 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Peacock. Purdue and Ohio State. What you got for me?
Yeah, my feelings are kind of torn on this one too. I mean, part of me looks at this, it's like unranked Ohio State team, they're struggling. I think 2-5, Big Ten record coming into Mackey. This just doesn't look like a game that Ohio State wins. It looks like a game Purdue could win by 20 or 30 like they did in Nebraska. Then I think about what happened last year when Purdue went to Ohio State. Jake Diebler, that was his first game as a head coach, knocks off, was Purdue number 1 at the time or number 2?
I think they were number 3.
Number 3. They were a top team anyway.
Right. They were a top 3 team.
Yeah. It's not really that important. And then I also think back to like, this is the point in the season where a team that maybe is unranked might come into Mackey and give Purdue a scare. Like last year, remember Minnesota? I think they led at the half in Mackey against Purdue. Yes. They were unranked. Yep. No one really expected that. They came in and did that. Maryland has done that in the past. It's just every once in a while, an unranked team will come in and face a really good Purdue team at Mackey, and they'll give them a game.
Yep.
And this feels like a game where we might see that because Purdue's coming back from a Washington and Oregon road trip. They probably got back on Sunday. I don't know for sure on that, but that would make sense to me. They've got 2 days. Yeah, they've got 2 days now to prepare for Ohio State, who's coming off a pretty tough loss to Indiana, where they had their opportunities to win that game, and they just couldn't quite get it done on their home floor. Now they're going to Purdue, and they're going to have every intention of giving them a game. Purdue has to be ready to come out and not have one of those letdown games that you oftentimes see when a good team goes in on the road, apparently, and gets a big win over a Big Ten contender in Oregon, and now they come back home against a relatively irrelevant team as far as a Big Ten regular season championship is concerned. This is a game that if Purdue's not prepared, could turn into another close one.
Yeah. If you after the calendar turned to 2025, Ohio State's played 5 games. They are 1-4. They lost against Michigan State 69-62. 7-point loss. Not a horrible loss. It was at home, so they got beat by Michigan State on their own floor. They traveled to Minnesota and won a double overtime game, 89-88 against the Gophers. Then they hosted Oregon, lost 73-71, so the 2 points there. They went to Wisconsin and lost by 70-68, 4 points, and then they lose to IU by 1 point in overtime. So they've lost their last 3 games by a combined 5 points. So they're not playing horribly well, or horribly, but they're not playing well enough to finish off and win. They're not taking advantage of those chances that they've been given. And Ohio State was one of the teams that I thought maybe could be a dark horse, not necessarily to win the title, but to be up in the top 5 to 6 maybe and beat some teams. And right now they're not showing that. But when they lose, other than to Maryland and Texas A&M, they're pretty close with their games. Oh, and Auburn too. Auburn beat them by 38.
Fair enough, right? I mean,
right.
They
beat Purdue by 18.
Right. Yeah. And we're up by 30 something at one point.
Correct. So. Yes.
Ohio State did not have Royal or Johnson Jr. against IU. That's about 23 points per game that they didn't have on their bench, or available to play, I should say. So that obviously could have greatly influenced the result of that game. Another
23
thing,
points, yeah.
Right, yeah. They picked up 2 guys in the front court in the portal. Bradshaw, who was a Kentucky transfer, Stewart from Duke.
Yep.
Both those guys were highly rated freshmen last year, and they come in, and now they are averaging like a combined 10 points per game, if that.
Stewart is at 7.2 or 6.1, and Bradshaw's at 7.2, so 13.3 points.
Okay, so a little more than I thought, but still.
That registers to be the 3rd highest scorer on the team if you combine them together. That's it.
Yeah. They still haven't had that impact. I don't think either of them are in the starting lineup right now.
I don't think so either.
I think that was why people thought Ohio State might be better than what they were, because they had 2 highly rated freshmen who were kind of regular-sized fish in a really big pond at Kentucky and Duke. Right. And now they come into an Ohio State team that's kind of rebuilding, but they have a new head coach who really did some really good work at the end of last regular season.
Almost made the tournament.
Yeah.
With as horrible as they were doing, they almost made the tournament.
And they have a good point guard in Bruce Thornton and a good leader to kind of lead the troops. They brought in some other guys for their backcourt. Like, this is a solid team. I think for Ohio State, the play from Bradshaw and Stewart could really be something that could keep them in the game against Purdue, because, again, Purdue's bigs, they're good. At least Pickoff and Wren is good. Caleb Furst has been playing pretty well, but they're not huge. And Bradshaw and Stewart both have some physicality to them that if they can use that and kind of hold their own in the paint, it'll keep them in the game.
Well, the one thing that Purdue's really got going for them on this is at Mackey Arena. They since they are on the road the last 2 games, they're going to have the next 3 at home. So they've got that part for them. That's an advantage to what they're getting ready to go into, because they host Ohio State tomorrow, IU or Purdue or Michigan on Friday. And then they play IU the next Friday. So they have a week off to prepare for IU on the 31st. So those are the next three games, and they're all at home, so that works out for them. But, Ohio State's the weird Michi Johnson was supposed to be – he came back from South Carolina, came back to Ohio State. They thought that maybe him and Thornton and Mobley – and even Micah Parrish, like that would be a quad guard set that they could just rotate them through and basically not miss a beat. And they're kind of struggling right now. Johnson's averaging 9.1, but I really thought he would be a bigger cog in what's happening. But you have Bruce Thornton 17.4, Devin Royal 13.8, and John Mobley Jr. 12.5, and Micah Parrish 10.5. Like Royal's a forward, but those are the top scorers, and then Johnson comes in. So I think if if Purdue's going to want to win this game, they've got to take one, I would say two of those, and really clamp down, especially with their defense at the way they're playing. If they can carry that over, then I think it's as simple as limit two of those four scorers down below their average.
Yeah, and none of those backcourt guys really jump out to me as like these huge athletic guards. They're going to cause a lot of problems as far as turnovers are concerned. They do shoot the ball extremely well. Not just Thornton. Mobley really can light it up. He showed that against IU. Like, he just has that kind of shot where if he gets hot, he can shoot it from deep. He can let it rip a lot of times, and that'll really hurt them if he gets going. But like you said, I think with the defenders Purdue has, the experience Purdue has, they're going to be capable of shutting some of those guys down. And if even one or two of them are shut down, it's going to make life really difficult for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I really am looking forward to Purdue getting back at home and being able to kind of get in the groove. They're getting ready to hit a real rough patch, a tough patch. I won't say rough, tough patch with the opponents going up in levels here. Not to take anything away from the ones that they've beaten, especially Oregon. Oregon's a top 15 program. That's a big win right there. That's the win that they're hanging their Big Ten on right now. Now they gotta finish off. Let's beat Ohio State and move on. And but let's do them one at a time. And I think if they can get Ohio State out of the way, they're setting themselves up pretty well to play a real rough, tough part of their schedule with a good outlook on things.
Yeah, I think it was Gene Katie that always said, you want to win a Big Ten championship, you win all your home games, you split your road games. That's kind of the formula. They are sitting at 4-1 in Big Ten road games. They're one win away from checking that box of half the road games. But you know what their 5 road games are left?
Yes.
It's at Iowa, Michigan, Michigan State, Indiana, and Illinois. Iowa is probably the easiest out of those, or maybe IU, but it's a rivalry game. I wouldn't say that. And none of those are going to be easy.
I would say Iowa would be the easiest, and I use the air quotes there if you can't hear them. Because you're right. IU, it doesn't matter if they're a walking dumpster fire, they're going to make it rough at Assembly Hall. It just is always that way. Even when Purdue comes in as the clear, far and away better team, there's always some adjustment and at least a good half of the game of they're giving you everything they've got, and then Purdue pulls away. I've seen it many a times where it was the other way around. Purdue would give them a run, and then just IU was that much better than them, and they'd pull away at the end. But yeah, I would say Iowa's the easiest, and then IU. It's probably the next easiest, I would say, because you've got Michigan State, you've got Illinois. Those are just really hard places to go play basketball. And Purdue has struggled historically at the Breslin Center. So it's that's a difficult one to say, oh, yeah, they got that one. Now, they can win. I don't doubt that. But it's been a real struggle in the past years.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that Purdue has taken advantage of the first half of their Big Ten schedule because it set them up to take some hits in the second half and still have a shot to win the Big Ten regular season. So they've done their jobs. Now you got to take care of business at home. They got 3 straight road games. Not going to be easy, like you said, but they got to take care of business, and they got to try and steal at least one more road game, maybe at Iowa, maybe the IU game.
I want them to win them all. Great.
Right. But in order for if we're looking at the split and then the win all the home games,
sure,
that's what we're looking at.
Yep. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to watching Ohio State and Purdue tomorrow night on the Big Ten Network, and we'll be back on Wednesday to chat about that and preview the Michigan game on Friday. And then Friday we've got Mike DeCourcy from Fox Sports College Hoops on Fox Sports, Big Ten Network, and the Sporting News. Thanks so much for joining us today on BLEAV in Purdue. We'll see you on Wednesday.